That's the mystery, that we'd all be one. So this is something like a trial. Something like a trial. Oh, they say in verse 20. See, I should just keep reading every time. For you bring certain strange things to our ears, certain foreign things to our ears. We would know whereof what these things mean. We got a little parentheses in verse 21. For all the Athenians and foreigners which were there spent their time in nothing else, but either to tell or to hear some new thing. It's talking about the Areopagus marketplace.
The coexisters, where all they want to do is give me more. Like, let me see how I can mold this into the real God, which has no rules, and contradictions don't exist, and we ignore them, and everything can't. There's no problem with all gods being true, unless in this case, there's only 100 right now. We can't have 101.
Right.
It's getting too complicated.
Against the law.
Yeah.
And we're talking about philosophers, right? Names Epicureans and Stoics. Like, what fundamentally they're doing? They're like, how should people live? What's the right way to live? Should we enjoy what we've got because we're all going to die? It's Epicurean philosophy. You can say it a million different ways. Champagne, sex, and rock and roll. Boom. Epicurean philosophy. Stoic philosophy is, well, a person should be controlled. They should be suffering out of duty, and that's what makes a person good. That's what makes a life worth living, right? So that's
even out of duty for God. I mean, that's the real God.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the Stoics were sort of, it's two extremes. The Stoics tend to be a bit almost something like agnostic. Anyways, there's better people who can give a history lesson on this. Find another channel on, the philosophy of Western thought, or the history of Western thought. But that's the gist. It's nothing new. Trying to figure out what the right way to live is, and they're arguing over it. And that's all they do. It's Twitter. The Areopagus is the Twitter of the ancient world. They're all arguing. They all want to hear it.
X now. It's called X now. Don't you know?
Is it? Yeah. Oh boy. So what does Paul do? So he's there. Maybe he's in a little dicey situation. They're all like, okay, you've been around. You've been kind of speaking out against us. Like, let's hear what you got to say. You got something new. We've never heard this before. We've got religious traditions from around the world, and it's brand new. People talk about, whatever this Christianity thing, it was in Egypt before. It's like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It wasn't at the Areopagus in, 60 AD. It didn't exist in the world. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't want to make such strong statements, but the point is that he's there and he's got to talk to these people. And so in verse 22, then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill, which is sort of the center of this Areopagus, and said, Mars is it was the name of the place named after a god of war, basically. Everyone knows who Mars is. And said, so what did he say? You men of Athens, I perceive, there's our Ido word. Well, I can tell that in all things, King James, you are too superstitious. Flip to the interlinear. Yeah. Look at that Greek word. See anything weird about it?
So right off the bat, it says the compound of a derivative of the base of Delos and Domion, more religious than others.
It's interesting that they, so just like that they say, they take the daimonion word and say, well, that means God's more or less. They take this word and says it means, like kind of too religious. There's
not a lot on this on the Strongs.
Right. The word doesn't really show up, but it is a compound word that has the word demon in it. It means fear of demons. And it's the same. And again, it's not freaking Paradise Lost, medieval demons. Yes, it is closer to God's. Like, I don't want to give them such a hard time about it, but they're watering something down here. And again, I don't think we should be adulterating God's word or watering it down. It means you are too afraid of these various spiritual entities. You were afraid of it. What am I going to do if I'm afraid of a demon that someone tells me is going to show up on Thursday night, right? I'm like, oh shit, I don't want it to show up. I'm scared. Well, what also are they going to give me alongside? They could be like, but if you want to be protected, you need to hang this little thing up on your door or something like that, right? That's what it means. It's like they're going to do all these worship practices because they fear the consequences of upsetting these entities. So, it doesn't unusually religious. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Again, it's too squishy. I could read way too much in when it says like afraid of the gods. These gods, the ones they're talking about, same word, right? Daemonion. So, and he's saying he's seeing it. It's not even it's a see, I just want to go into all the detail, but I'm not gonna. Okay, so he perceives it, he sees it. He's like, I can see it with my own eyes. How did he see it? What did he see? He's about to explain it. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions. So again, it's Areopagus. They're in this zone. They're going up to this hill where they're going to have, there's a little theater thing, and then they can have their talks. Along the way, there's all these altars, essentially. So that word devotions, venerations. So yes, there are these little things that represent this entity. And so that's why he tells them that you have too much fear of them. And that fear, again, is the same kind of, fear the Lord kind of a fear. This is respect, reverence, too reverential of these things, because I saw these things. So as I passed by and beheld all these little altars, I found an altar with this inscription: to the unknown God. And that word is Theos. That is the word for a proper God. To the unknown God, the one whose name we do not know.